Good. And yeah, welcome to this track 3, as we call it. This is a track of short format talks, and we have 5 lovely speakers as well as some music that's coming in between. And so let's dive straight in. We will have 5 speakers going one after the other, and so the request to the audience is to please stay on mute and post any questions you might have of the speakers on chat. And each speaker will have a hard stop at 15 minutes. So any questions that they are unable to weave into their talk, they will hopefully respond to you on chat later as well. So to the speakers, please watch out for any time warnings I might give you on private chat on Zoom here. So I'll give you a reminder at around 12 minutes and then maybe once more before we hit 15 minutes so that you can stay on track. Yeah. And so let's dive in. Our first speaker in this track is Dr. Zafar Mahmood. Dr. Mahmood is currently the president of Zakat Foundation of India. He's also associated with God's Grace Foundation and the Interfaith Coalition for Peace. And he's had a very illustrious career in the administrative services behind him. And today he's going to be speaking to us about the preserved tablet, and it is about an Islamic view on interfaith affection. So, Dr. Mahmood, please take it.
Thank you. So I'll switch over to my presentation.
If you would like to see the speaker on the main screen, you can switch to speaker view instead of gallery view for the rest of us.
So can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I begin in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, master of the day of judgment. All praise belongs to him and all of us have to return to him. The topic of our discussion today is the preserved tablet. So greetings to all of you and particularly to very many thanks to Samvaad, the Seeds for Peace, Madam Pallavi Wali, Madam Rukmini Iyer, and the team SNIS, and all the esteemed colleagues and the wonderful listeners and audience. So, ladies and gentlemen, if we look at man's faith trajectory so far, so I'm reminded of a poem titled as Adam's Travelogue. It's actually originally in Urdu, Sir Guzashte Adam by Dr. Sir Muhammad Iqbal, where man is speaking in retrospect, in first person. And let me give a clarification here that as per belief, before the human world came into physical existence, on the pattern of the angels, all the billions of human souls also had already been created by God. And the first covenant is referred to as these souls had jointly promised to God that they would behave well in the world. So that had all happened before the physical world came into existence. So in this poem, this man is saying that I forgot the story of the first covenant. And in the Garden of Heaven, when I drank the cup of awareness, I felt uneasy. And ever since then, in the heavens and on earth, I have always searched for the truth about the world, utilizing the celestial heights of my thought process. However, such was my fickle temperament that in no place under the sky could I settle for good. And then at last my eyes, enamored of materialism, opened, and I found the life essence lodged in the mansion of my heart. So man is expected to be generously indifferent to color, birth, nation, and faith. That is the lesson here. and unity of mankind and its universal realization is the great message of this poem. If one of you is interested in watching the whole poem, you can watch it at YouTube. We have made it by the name of Tracking Man's Journey Through Multiple Faiths. And the main title is I Found the Life Essence Lodged in the Mansion of My Heart. It also reminds us, ladies and gentlemen, that in our world, the various faiths had spread through different prophets of God. And some of these prophets were given books. The Holy Quran says in 85.22 that since before the creation of humanity, all the upcoming scriptures were kept safely together in a preserved tablet, guarded from every accursed devil and secure from any falsehood. And there is also a concept given there in the book of the night of power. These are one of the nights, few nights during the last month of the Ramadan. And therein, the book says, therein is decreed every matter of ordainment. So the concept before the world came into being, God had sent down his comprehensive message in nascent form from his preserved tablet, which is the translation of the Quranic term Lawh al-Mahfuz, to the worldly sky. And about the divine, about the night of power, the divine announcement says that this night is better than 1,000 months, which makes up a normal human lifespan, 1,000 months, 84.3 years. So this is that is to say that the prayers made during this night have greater value than entire life of supplication. And on this night, angels descend to earth carrying God's bounties and instructions for the humanity. Talking about the glory of this night, Quran clarifies that it is God who revealed thence the message through his prophets during this night. Okay, and well-researched scholarly opinion converges around the belief that the revelation of predecessor scriptures by God to the earlier messengers also occurred during similar nights. So this is indeed, ladies and gentlemen, a very strong directive for maintaining interfaith affection. And let us remind ourselves that the names of some messengers are mentioned in the Quran in different parts of the world. The Quran says that in different parts of the world, great spiritual names occur in multiple theologies. Some of these spiritual persons were among those revered messengers whose names are not mentioned in the Quran. Nonetheless, all the believers are duty-bound to equally respect all of these messengers as mentioned in the Quran, including those whose names are not mentioned there. So similar is the case with spiritual books. Names of some books are mentioned in the Quran, and names of many books are not mentioned by name in the Quran. If one of you is interested in knowing the exact references in detail, so there is a 9-minute YouTube talk by me titled as Interfaith Love, the Islamic Mandate. You are most welcome to kindly watch it. So what was sent down earlier from the preserved tablet to the worldly sky was a compendium of God's perspective planning for the universe, including the spiritual life on earth. And let us stop. Ibrahim's room has stopped. Has it stopped?
We can hear you, sir, but your screen is no longer shared.
Okay, just a minute. Go to application. Only the host can share this meeting. That is the issue. So you have de-hosted me. That is why.
Oh, I think someone's changed something in the main room. I'll get that sorted. Could you continue in the meanwhile?
Okay. So without showing the screen, should I continue?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. Fine. So let me refer to my notes in that case, because it was very easy for me. where I was. So on this night, etc. Yeah, so I was saying that you are welcome. So I was saying that what we learned here is that what was sent down earlier from the preserved tablet to the worldly sky was a compendium of God's perfective planning for the universe, including the spiritual life on earth. If God would have so willed, it's very important to realize, if God would have so willed, he could have made all of us world citizens owe allegiance to one faith. But God chose not to do so. That's very important to think about. God rather shaped us into races, nations, and faiths. And that way he has put us to test during our stay on this planet. God evaluates as to, despite being apparently unlike each other in more than one ways, how do we respond to his message, and to what extent we accommodate, love, and help each other. Okay, God is testing us as to how much are we able to appreciate his design of intrinsic human unity interspersed into outwardly group diversity. So what is the lesson in nutshell? That God has networked the humanity in the form of communities led by different prophets, many of whom were given scriptures in their respective languages. The Holy Quran, as I just now mentioned to you, says in 2.285, La nufarriqu bayna ahadin min rusuli, which means that do not differentiate among the messengers of God, including those whose names are not mentioned in the Quran. Says Swami Vivekananda, he said at the first Parliament of World Religions in Chicago in 1893, and I quote, that as the different streams having their sources in different places all mingle their water in the sea, so, O Lord, the different paths which man takes, which through different tendencies, various though they appear, all lead to thee. So the prophets spread to mankind God's word revealed through them. This is equally reflected in the philosophy of many other spiritual books, like Holy Vedas say, Ekam Sat Vipraha Bahuda, meaning thereby there is only one truth and wise men tell it differently. Many other spiritually enlightened personalities of the world have also been similarly spreading high virtue. The Holy Quran begins from Rabbil Alameen, describing God. God is described there as Rabbil Alameen, that is the creator and sustainer of the worlds. It's not saying Rabbil Muslimin, not the creator and sustainer of the believers who believe in Islam. No, of the worlds, all the worlds. Okay, and ends with God's description as Rabbin Nas, creator and sustainer of the human beings, entire humanity. That way addressing all the humanity and indeed the entire creation. That is Islam's powerful mandate for maintaining interfaith love and affection. And you will be happy to realize and note that also this squarely translates into the Constitution of India, which enshrines in Article 51AE that every citizen is bound by the fundamental duty to promote harmony and the spirit of common brotherhood amongst all the people of India, transcending religious diversities. It is word by word reproduction from our Constitution. And in the same spirit, Pope Francis said that one's self-enrichment lies in opening one's doors to others with the goal of human good. The preamble to the United Nations Charter says, we the peoples of the United Nations, determined to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights and in the dignity and worth of the human person. And it calls upon the world community to practice tolerance and live together in peace. And for achieving that purpose, to unite our strengths. So let us thus rededicate ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, to the spirit of mutual accommodation. Let us seek mutual help and friendship and stand firm in constancy and patient perseverance. We should also realize that that justice is the first step from which emerges reconciliation. Reconciliation leads to harmony, and harmony leads to peace. So if we have to have peace, it's very important to realize at the worldly level that we have to begin from justice, then go over to reconciliation, then harmony and peace. So it will not be very useful to keep the this thing horse behind. Let the followers of all beliefs appreciate that there is a common destiny based on love and peaceful coexistence. Let us jointly appeal to the followers of all religions and faiths from this platform to work together for strengthening tolerance and mutual respect, thus enhancing human dignity and joining the chorus in praise of God. Let us also urge all the political formations and organizations to join hands and contribute in creating and nurturing an atmosphere of trust and understanding. And I'm also happy to report here that at the Interfaith Coalition for Peace, which I have been heading for the last about 15 years in Delhi, at all levels, the numerically major faiths of India, that is Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, and Sikhism, are equally represented. And people of all other faiths also enthusiastically participate in the deliberations and programs. We sponsor interfaith youth gatherings, we organize interfaith women's journeys, and we organize group discussions on topics of common interest like, for example, fasting, light, environmental protection, etc. We also participate in praxis like projects for empowerment of the deprived. There is a unique project which we have done, and I invite all of you to go through it. It's available online. The humanity has been thinking that the Taj Mahal just symbolizes beauty or love between two individuals. But we hardly are aware that Taj Mahal also is a vehicle for carrying out to the humanity God's message. So through it, the inscriptions on its walls and arches, etc. So we have come up with a book, with a coffee table book, with so much illustration also of the Taj, various scenes, depictions of Taj Mahal's walls, outside and inside. It's known as Taj Mahal's spiritual message. So, and it talks of the message which God has given to the humanity for interfaith love and affection. So, but then we are hardly aware of that. So successful human existence, ladies and gentlemen, is all about keeping the soul above the body. See, each one of us, our existence is divided into two parts. One is material body and the other is a spiritual soul. So far as we are able, each one of us is able to keep the soul above the body. That is the entire faith, irrespective of how it is known as in the world. That is what has been described by Dr. Sir Muhammad Iqbal in Persian, which means what is religion? It is cheese boozy, but I'll spare you of the Persian reading. But it says that what is religion? It is rising above the level of dust. The poet refers to the human body as a dust. It is so insignificant, its value is not more than dust. What is most valuable is the spirit, the soul inside. So what is religion? It is rising above the level of the dust so that the soul, purged of matter, becomes self-conscious. And we know that centuries-old underlying principle of Indian social order says, Sarv Dharm Sampann, let all faiths manifest. Yet, we, the citizens of the world, seem to have digressed from our original promise, the first covenant. And we need to put our hearts together and mull over possible institutional changes to be effected in the intra-humanity universal network. Let us reminisce, ladies and gentlemen, that the humanity was created out of one couple. At any given point of time, the geographical boundaries should not be an impediment in the way of human development and progress. That way, the humanity would reaffirm its faith as enshrined in the preamble to the United Nations Charter, which says in the dignity and worth of the human person. Although it is United Nations, but the objective is the dignity and worth of the human person. So, ladies and gentlemen, some of us, citizens of the world, would have to imagine ourselves in the skies, like Aristotle's philosopher king, and selflessly think how best to guide the humanity, urging it to undergo the required metamorphosis in the field of interpersonal and intergroup human behavior, so that upcoming generation gets made of better human beings. And thus, in this way, we would be able to fruitfully contribute towards fulfilling our first covenant with God by cherishing and nurturing the common thread permeating across the various prophetic communities as envisaged in the preserved tablet. For carrying out such message forward, this valuable platform provided by Samvaad National Interfaith Summit and Seeds of Peace will surely stand in good stead. So let us light and our candles together. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity.
Thank you so much, sir. There's a lot to mull over in what you've shared, and I hope you're able to take that in and assimilate the message. Thanks a lot. Let's move to our next speaker. We have Siddhartha. Siddhartha is joining us from Bangalore. He is the founder of People Tree and also the beautiful Fireflies Ashram in Bangalore. He's got decades of experience behind him around culture, ecology, and sustainable development. And he will be speaking to us about interfaith dialogue and climate change. So over to you, Siddhartha. Please do watch out on private chat for time warnings.
Okay. Thank you, Rukmini. Let me start off by narrating something which one of my college lecturers stated many years ago when I was in Chennai, in Loyola College, Chennai. And during a discussion, he said, we are first of all human beings. We are first of all human beings. And only then are we Hindus or Muslims or Christians or Sikhs or Jains or... We are first of all human beings. And only then are we Hindus or Muslims or Christians or Sikhs or Jains. In other words, we must first celebrate our common humanity. Our common humanity. And today we are living in a globalized world, one world. And I think all religious traditions must learn to appreciate our common humanity. Religions have a lot of positive, liberative dimensions within them. But sometimes some religious leaders emphasize divisions and are closed in their thinking. And it's therefore important to remember that our common humanity is primary. And for me, this has been a touchstone. Whatever faith I believe in, whatever spiritual dimension I connect with, I can never forget that we are first of all human beings. I have attended many interfaith dialogues. Some of them are good, but many of them just end up being pious and narrating their own, each religion talks about its own glory. And sometimes I feel it's an unconscious attempt to say, my faith is the true faith, in these interreligious dialogues. It's really not an attempt to build bridges. Therefore, I am partially wary of interfaith dialogues of the traditional order, which is not open. And that is why I think that rather than just talking about interfaith dialogue, if we come together to solve common problems, that would be a way of working together and bonding and connecting on very concrete issues, whether it is poverty alleviation, whether it is climate justice, whether it's on gender issues. We are all aware, we just had the COP26 meeting in Glasgow, that the biggest challenge we are going to face in the years to come is climate change. It's not only in the years to come, it's already started. By the end of the century, a large part of India will be unlivable because of climate change. It's likely that coastal cities will go underwater or partially underwater. Many, there will be mass migration, the phenomenon of climate refugees. For every 1% rise in temperature, there'll be something like a 10% reduction in food production. So this is the biggest challenge that humanity faces, and the biggest challenge that all religions must take into account. And so far, if you look at India, how many Indians are, aware of the seriousness of climate change? How many religious leaders are aware of the seriousness of climate change? So this is why it's really important to come together on an issue like climate change and work together at two levels, mitigation and adaptation. There are so many small and big things we can all do to prevent this disaster. And it's not just a disaster. People are talking of the 6th extinction. We have had 5 great extinctions in human history. And some are now talking of the 6th extinction, where much of the human race could possibly be wiped out. So it's that serious. And therefore, it's really a big challenge for everybody to come together. But specifically, if religious leaders, since they have tremendous influence over the masses, tremendous influence over political leaders, if religious leaders come together, this could be of tremendous use. Religious leaders have made statements to this effect. For example, there is the Hindu Declaration on Climate Change, which says, I'll just quote one paragraph from there. The Hindu tradition understands that man is not separate from nature, that we are linked by spiritual, psychological, and physical bonds with the elements around us. Knowing that the divine is present everywhere and in all things, Hindus strive to do no harm. We hold a deep reverence for life and an awareness that the great forces of nature, the earth, the water, the fire, the air, and space, as well as the various orders of life, including plants and trees, forests and animals, are bound to each other within life's cosmic web. We cannot continue to destroy nature without also destroying ourselves. I'll repeat that line from the Hindu Declaration on Climate Change. we cannot continue to destroy nature without also destroying ourselves. Buddhists have also, in Buddhism, there is this notion of dependent co-origination. Everything is interconnected. And if everything is interconnected, human beings are connected with nature. We are not separate from nature. We are part of nature. The philosopher Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist Vietnamese philosopher, said, if you are a poet and you're looking at a piece of paper on which you're going to write a poem, you'll see a cloud in it. What he meant was that that paper to grow, a tree had to be cut. And for that tree to grow, there had to be rain. And for that rain to come, there had to be clouds. So everything is connected. And even the tree, for it to be cut, there had to be a woodcutter, and the woodcutter had parents. So all things are connected, the interconnection of all things. In Islam, we see there's a Islamic declaration on climate change made in 2015, where the Prophet Muhammad, God's peace and blessings be upon him, guided his companions to conserve water even in washing for prayer, forbade the felling of trees in the desert, ordered a man who had taken some nestlings from their nest to return them to their nest. And when he came upon a man who had lit a fire on an anthill, commanded, put it out, put it out. He had asked for establishing protected areas for the conservation and sustainable use of rangelands, plant cover, wildlife. He himself lived a frugal life, free of excess, waste, and ostentation. Renewed and recycled his meager possessions by repairing or giving them away. Ate simple food, healthy food, which only occasionally included meat. Took delight in the created world and was, in the words of the Quran, a mercy to all beings. The churches also have had various declarations. Pope Francis wrote an encyclical on issues related to ecology and climate change, a very powerful encyclical. And there are 5 volumes known as the Earth Bible Project. And Archbishop Desmond Tutu, a Nobel Prize winner, who wrote the foreword to that, asked if biblical texts devalue the earth by making the self-interest of humans its dominant concern. So the Earth Bible Project is very honest, and it says, did these biblical texts devalue the earth by making the self-interest of humans its dominant concern? The Earth Bible Project explores the biblical text from the perspective of the earth, suspecting that the text and its interpreters may be anthropocentric and not geocentric. That the writers of the Bible and the interpreters of the Bible were possibly anthropocentric and not geocentric. It asks whether there is a concern for earth community in the text, or whether earth is being treated unjustly in the text. It attempts to retrieve alternative traditions that hear the voice of the earth and that value the earth more than as a human instrument. So the earth is not just a human instrument. There is a famous statement of Chief Seattle, and he comes from an indigenous spiritual tribe. The city of Seattle is named after him. And Chief Seattle says, we know this, the earth does not belong to man. Man belongs to the earth. I repeat that. The earth does not belong to man. Man belongs to the earth. Man has not woven the net of life. He is just a thread in it. We are just a thread in the net of life. Everything he does to this net, he does to himself. What befalls the earth will befall the sons of the earth. We know this. All things are bound up in each other like the blood that binds the family. All things are connected. Very powerful statement. I'll, sum up what I wanted to say, that we have to celebrate our common humanity. This is really very important. And that all religions, must see that whatever texts and preachings that, they have, do not violate the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of the United Nations. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights was something which humankind produced, and the constitutional values of India. I don't think that any religion should violate the constitutional values of India, which talks about the equality of everybody, which talks of mutual respect. So this is very fundamental. And I'd say, if we could all come together to look at there are two ways of looking at spirituality. There is the vertical dimension, you and your moksha, you and your salvation. In some ways, it's a selfish approach. You're just concerned with yourself and your personal salvation, your personal moksha, your personal nirvana. But you can have a horizontal approach to religion, where your moksha is connected to the lives of all other human beings. Your moksha is connected to our common humanity. And when it is horizontal, it is also close to the earth. Your moksha is also connected to the ecological life of the earth. So we have to opt either, for the vertical one or the horizontal one. And it's the horizontal one which celebrates our common humanity. It's the horizontal one which is close to the earth. And we should, the time has come where we should all religious leaders must opt for the horizontal dimension. Just a little story before I conclude. I call it the story of the frogs in the well. There's a little village with many wells, and it's a very hot day. And each well has a color. Some wells have saffron color, some on the walls. Some wells have green color, some white, some blue. And the frogs are sitting on top of their respective wells. And as it gets very hot, it's a very hot day, the frogs get frustrated, the heat is, getting to them. And the frogs from the saffron well shout, our well is the best well. Our water is the purest water. The frogs from the green well respond, no, our water is the best water. Our well is the best well. The frogs from the white well and the blue well all, croak at their loudest and hurl insults at each other, claiming that their water is the best water. After they do this for some time, they get tired and it's become very hot. So they decide to jump into their respective wells to cool off. And some of them, go deep into the well because the water at the bottom is cooler. So they go deep inside, and some find that there are little crevices in the walls of the well at the bottom. And they enter the crevices because the water there is even cooler. And after they have cooled off, they decide to come up. And surprisingly, some of the frogs in the saffron well, when they come up in the green well. And some of the frogs in the green well, when they come up in the saffron well. And some of the frogs in the blue well come up in the white well. And some in the white well come up in the green well, and so on. Why? because these underground crevices, passages are connected with each other. The water at the bottom is a common water, and so they don't realize that the water is the same water. So in other words, what this story is trying to say is, as long as you stay on the surface, you only see the divisions. And these divisions are cultural. They are man-made. The divine cannot have divisions. And the deeper you go into yourself, you touch the common waters. You touch our common humanity. So if religions talk about divisions, then they are very superficial. They have not touched our common humanity. Thank you very much.
That was beautiful, Siddhartha. Thank you so much. And for those of us who have not visited Fireflies in Bangalore, I highly recommend it. It's a very beautiful, nourishing space. And Siddhartha has a lot of stories to tell around how he's built the space as well. So let's move to the next speaker performer, in fact. Siddhartha, in the meanwhile, there are a few questions and comments on chat that you might wish to respond to. So we move to a musical interlude with Girija. Girija is a biology educator and she's based in Bangalore. I refer to her as my wellness teacher as well. She will today speak and more importantly sing to us and share her journey of exploring faith through music. And her session is titled Samvaad, the conversation with sound. So Girija, over to you. You have 15 minutes.
Thank you, Rukmini, for the warm welcome. And I thank the speakers before me for setting the stage for what I'm going to say. So before I begin, I thank the organizers of this summit for giving me an opportunity to share with you this journey of discovering my faith through music. And as Siddhartha said, finding that common water, right? And I also wish to express my deep reverence and gratitude to all my gurus who not just taught me music, but also taught me to engage with sound and understand its role in faith and dialogue. I also feel very grateful to my parents who gave me an environment where no particular faith was imposed on me so that I could explore faith very independently and without bias. So I invite you to this conversation with sound, which is Nada Samvaad. I hope I'm audible to all of you. The sound is clear. Yeah? Okay. So by conversation with sound, what I invite you for is, as I present to you the sounds that I have internalized, I wish that you observe how these sounds reach you, what does it invoke in you, and what does it evoke in you. And without judgment. So the first conversation that I would like to engage you with is faith in self. This composition that I'm going to present talks about creation as embodiment of sound. That we are beings born in space reverberating with sound, whether we hear it or no, and that we hold sound, we respond to sound, was a very liberating idea for me because it gave me a very integrated view of existence, of creation. That was my common water, like if I could quote Siddhartha. And through this composition, I also want to make the point of the first step of dialogue being listening to the sound inside of you and outside of you. Because if you're an embodiment of sound, it's important to listen to the sound before you respond to the sound. So here is presenting the first composition. It's a Carnatic classical piece in Ragam Jagan Mohini, composed by the poet Saint Tyagaraja. शोभिल्लु सप्त स्वर 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 सुंदरुळ भजंपवे मनसा शोभिल्लु सप्त स्वरा सुंदरुळ भजंपवे मनसा शोभिल्लु सप्त स्वरा सुंदरुळ भजंपवे मनसा शोभिल्लु सप्त स्वरा नाभि हृत्कण्ठरसन नाभि हृत्कण्ठरसन नाभि हृत्कण्ठरसन नासा दूलयन्तु नाभि हृत्कण्ठरसन नासा दूलयन्तो शोभिल्लु सप्त स्वरा सुंदरुळ भजंपवे मनसा शोभिल्लु सप्त स्वरा धररक्समादुळलो वरगायत्री हृदयमुना धररक्समादुळलो वरगायत्री हृदयमुना सुरभू सुरमानसमुना सुरभू सुरमानसमुना सुरभू सुरमानसमुना शुभत्यागराजुनी गड सुरभू सुरमानसमुना शुभत्यागराजुनी गड शोभिल्लु सप्त स्वरा सुंदरुळ भजंपवे मनसा शोभिल्लु सप्त स्वरा So as embodiments of sound, it is possible that the sound I produce does not sit in harmony or in synchrony with the sound someone else produces. So what happens when the rhythms falter? And here again, it's music that helped me discover the healing power of releasing emotions through sound. So the next song is a song of anguish. And as the sounds move from inside to outside, presenting the anguish, I found that inside of me, the space is created to fill myself with emotions of compassion and love for the other. So the second step of the dialogue is, after I listen and there is a discord, I also give myself space to empty myself of emotions, the cleansing and the healing, so that it can move to love. So here is the second offering, which is Jeeva Laga. It is a Marathi song which was popularized by Asha Bhosle. जीव लगा राहिले दूर घर माझे पाऊल थकले माथ्यावरचे जड झाले ओझे जीव लगा जीव लगा किर्र बोलते घन बनराई सांज सभोवती दाटून ये सुख सुमनांची सरळी माया पाचोळा वाजे जीव लगा गाव मागचा मागे पडला पायतळे पथती मरे बुडला ही घटकेची सुटे सराय मिटळे दरवाजे जीव लगा निराधार मी वनवाशी घेशील केव्हा माझ हृदयाशी तूच एकला नाथ नाथा महिमा तव गाजे जीव लगा दूर घर माझे पाऊल थकले माथ्यावरचे जड झाले ओझे जीव लगा So as I released the emotions that troubled me, that gave me anguish and made space for compassion, I could offer myself to those who might be producing discordant sounds, maybe because they're going through the same anguish that I'm going through. And that gave space to also reflect on the bhava element of music, where sound travels from one person to another, and it travels with the lyrics. And the magic is not in the lyrics, but it is in the bhava that is put into the sound, which carries the lyrics to the other person. So discovering and respecting forms of worship in all religions and cultures, which use sound to praise and express love for the divine, was another part of the dialogue. And I would close with a bhajan that talks about the importance of moving beyond the lyrics and looking at the bhava, and close with a prayer that now, as embodiments of sound, let us all have this conversation with sound and possibly find the notes that unite. So, Govinda Bolo, Gopala Bolo. गोविंद बोलो गोपाल बोलो राम राम बोलो हरि नाम बोलो गोविंद बोलो गोपाल बोलो राम राम बोलो हरि नाम बोलो अल्लाह साईं शु नानक अल्लाह साईं शु नानक जोराष्ट्र महावीर बुद्ध नाम बोलो जोराष्ट्र महावीर बुद्ध नाम बोलो गोविंद बोलो गोपाल बोलो ये नाम सारे है जीवन सहारे ये नाम सारे है जीवन सहारे परमानंद के खोलते हैं द्वारे जो नाम चाहो वो नाम गोविंद बोलो, गोपाल बोलो, राम राम बोलो, हरि नाम बोलो। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्छते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Thank you.
I don't want to bring my voice in after that. But that was beautiful, Girija. Thank you so much. Yeah, um, I personally feel like letting that soak in for a while, but I also noticed the timer on the clock ticking away, and we have two more speakers to go. So I'm going to jump to the next speaker. We have Jaish. Jaish, if you could have your yeah, okay, now your video is on as well. So Jaish is based in Bhopal in Madhya Pradesh. He is a lead fellow. He comes from a background in agriculture and rural management. And after 2 decades of professional success, he is now on what he terms as income fasting, which I find absolutely fascinating. Today, he is going to speak to us about how science catching up to the need for dialogue and faith. So over to you, Jaish, and you have 15 minutes.
Yeah, but this is not the Rukmini. After this kind of music interlude, if I need to play the spoil sport, all hell will break loose on me. So, but thank you very much. I mean, eh, I share the same feeling. I just need to soak in. But yet, I'm just finding it such a coincidence that this particular session itself is such a nice representation of all the paths which sages have suggested us over the path of last millennium. No, we started with bhakti of holy tablet, where Sir suggested us to put matter, soul above the matter, and then Siddhartha suggested us to go on karma path, the karma yoga, where he said that climate action and that kind of karma can bring us all together. And then the search of love searching for words in all the bhajans, it was perfect. I mean, all the three path has been covered, and here I am trying to share the dullest path of all, that is Jnana Yoga, and that is what we call science. And so, yeah, I mean, but I will take the responsibility of sharing what I learned on the Gyan path, which I took in last 4 or 5 years. So, as Rukmini mentioned, it has been two decades of professional life, and I was not really happy. I was dissatisfied with my life, and at the same time, I was very afraid. I was fearful, and I was looking for some sort of guidance. So I went on all the path together, and I found for myself the path of science, understanding how brain works, most useful, because it was appealing to my measuring mind. So in that quest, when I started, the first experiment which I found out was done in the field of psychology was seeing how our thoughts affects our physiology. So if someone is thinking something, it does get reflected on some part of our body, and the scientists believed that the pupil of the eye is passes to see the soul. So they put the pupil of the eye on a measuring scale, and they gave participants some easy questions, mathematical questions, and some difficult questions which need some cognitive engagement. So just for example, they ask someone what is 2 by 2, and they will say 2 into 2 equal to 4, because it just comes so automatically to us that it doesn't stress us. And when they ask people, what is 26 multiplied by 27? So as you can see, it doesn't come that naturally. So what do we expect? We expect that this kind of question should make us stressed, and the size of the pupil should get reduced. But what they found that when we are cognitively busy, the size of pupil actually get expanded. So that means that we get relaxed. And I found it very counterintuitive to the way people keep on giving us answers to make our life easy. So YouTube keep playing video on loop, Netflix suggests us what to watch. There's so many people, there's so many platforms which are trying to make our life easy. Swiggy gives us everything without thinking, like what do you want to eat? Let me suggest you. So everyone is trying to give us answers and trying to make our life easy, but only if science confirms it is totally a wrong way to go about our life. We should be given tasks, we should be given material, we should be asked by our leader, religious, business, political, to make us think. But they are not making us think. They are making us let go of our authority, our inquiry, so that we follow them. So so this gave me insight into power of dialogue. So when you have to do the dialogue in the morning, I was listening to the dialogue and how it works. For dialogue, the most important thing is you need to have a content. No, if you don't have content, how do you share your worldview? How do you, if you don't think for yourself, how do you do that? So to get that content, I started looking dialogue with different kind of people in all kind of settings, and that was so helpful, and it actually started taking away my unhappiness, and I started enjoying life, because then I realized that it's a beautiful word. The more you inquire, I don't sound stupid. The more I inquire, the more people say I'm more intelligent. So in that way, I found it was very easy way to look good. No, it is very easy way to look that I'm keen to learn your world view. So I also got more respect in that path. The second problem which I had was dissatisfaction. So when do we get dissatisfied? We get dissatisfied when we are not getting what we're expecting out of a conversation, out of a relationship, out of something. But in my case, I think I was getting more than what I was giving. So it should not have been made dissatisfied. I should have been more satisfied person on this earth. But then I realized my measuring machine itself is faulty, because science experiments tell us that our mind is not really rational. They said that man is a rational animal, but science has taken away man is rational animal, and then somebody said that man is only animal, not even rational. So in that sense, the more I realized that animalistic part of myself by learning more about brains, like different kind of mind we have, like we have reptilian mind, we have newly evolved some neocortex and all those kind of terminology I got to know. So then I realized that if my mind is such a faulty machine, then I shouldn't rely on it. And this particular book that is called Slow Thinking and Fast Thinking, slow and fast, something like that. So in that book, they said that only if we allow our slow mind to respond to our fast mind, we might avoid so many mistakes. The only problem is everybody is trying to make us fast, and everybody is trying to not everyone, even we ourselves are more than willing to go into the tunnel, no, because we have been shown that there's some future which is more beautiful than the presence. But as we just saw in the last session, the present time is much more beautiful. I was more worried about my session when Dr. Saeed and Siddhartha was speaking, but the moment I heard the music, my all worried went away from the window. So in that sense, this thing that I have a good measuring mind. When I found out my mind is not good, I realized that in my measurement, I need to add one aspect which no one else but only I can bring, and that is time. And how do you bring time into a measurement? They said Maya is measurement. So in Maya plus time is moksha, I guess. So when you have a network, you want to settle everything here and now. You need to, your ego tells us to get more than what you give. But when you add time into this equation, when you allow 30, 40, 50 relationship in your life where you don't want to settle each and everything right away, then it gives a community. I think that is the safest space. There's no safe space outside our mind. The only we can make our mind safe by thinking that there are 30, 40, 50 relationships which I will continue for eternity, at least with family. I mean, in today's life, we are even dealing with our family in a very measuring way, I mean, even with my wife, I used to carry this, this is the part of budget which you will take care. This is a part of budget which I will take care. I am doing this much housework, so you also need to do this much housework. And that was that was making me dissatisfied. Though I was winning the small fights, but I was losing the war of life. So in that sense, the need of community and the knowledge that community is not outside, community is always around us. It is just our measuring mind which stops us from seeing it. It was very helpful discovery for myself. And the third was fear. So there are so much information everywhere now that we believe that there's always a consistent fear of missing out. I mean, that we might miss some new thing, or something good which I'm enjoying will go away from me. And that fear was unknown. I don't know why it's come, but then I read our experiment on willpower and what willpower does. So what willpower does is essentially keep the demon under control. There are millennium years of history we have. There's so much collective memory we share of the trauma, war, plague, bacteria, all those kind of 5 extinction which Siddhartha has mentioned. So we have so much collective memory on the cloud called mind, that willpower is actually needed to keep that in control. Willpower is not needed to make our life materialistically good. Willpower is not to make New Year resolution. Willpower is not to love your family by conscious effort. That is all mind that we probably need to do with our inquiry, with our knowledge, with our interconnectedness, respect for that. That is the task. That is not the task of willpower. So when I realized that, I mean, an enormous burden from my mind to take care of my fear went away. Because if my willpower is already doing such an enormously good job of keeping those demons under control, any future foreseeable fear of my mind will take care by the willpower. So then I realized that all my beliefs are stupid, all my beliefs are unnecessary. Especially, I mean, my only belief which is necessary is my wife is right. Other than that, none of my belief is necessary for my life. So in that sense, I gave full freedom to my willpower to take care of me, and that took away all my fear. So with these 3 science experiment and with these 3 things, I realized the virtuous loop for myself, that more faith, more dialogue, more community, that is a virtuous loop. If I compromise on any of these 3 things, it start getting into the vicious cycle. So less faith will make me do less dialogue, because I will not feel safe in this world, to talk about my perspective, and then that will reduce my community, and that is a vicious cycle. So thank you very much for giving this opportunity. And again, I want to just repeat that it has such a coincidence that Jnana Marg, Karma Marg, Bhakti Marg, Dhyan Marg, and in the coming session, we are going to see it all together by Naveen, where he will say, he will talk about how do we bring all these different paths, people who practice different paths together in the dialogues and the community. So thank you very much, and may all may all of us realize this power of faith. Nothing more than faith is required for our life. There's so much we cannot control. We just can have faith. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaish. That was beautiful. And I love how lightly and yet deeply you hold your own journey. It's really inspiring. Thank you. And well, Naveen, you've already been set up. So just a quick introduction. When Naveen joins us from Auroville, and he is the co-founder of Ritambara and the founder of Purnam, and I've been privileged to be part of Purnam Cafe, an experiment that started during the pandemic, and it's formed into this beautiful community. And I see several members from the community here today in this room as well. Naveen is also an ardent student of yoga. And today he will speak to us about Purnam, and he calls it an experiment in fostering dialogue spaces. So over to you, Naveen.
Thank you, Rukmini, and everybody. It's great to be here and listen to respected friends and elders. Yeah, over the last hour or so. Could we have more videos on? It feels a little odd to be speaking to little black boxes with names on it. Yeah, thanks, Ria and others. Yeah. Thanks, Jaish. I really enjoyed this little bit about 50 relationships that we need to sort of foster, keep alive, authentic relationships in our life around well-being. So I'll start from there. Purnam was not directly an attempt at that, but it's an attempt at sort of creating a community of 100 friends where one can feel at home. Yeah. So I did not have the thought space to get into this and think, so I'm just going to read out a speech that I wrote for the magazine or the publication. And then if there is some time left at the end, we'll also have a quick chat. Yeah. So please bear with me if I sound a little mechanical with reading it out. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Purnam, an experiment in fostering dialogic spaces. I had been inspired by Gandhiji's life and worldview for a while now. In 2019, we had his 150th birth anniversary, and I had asked myself, what would be a good way to commemorate it? I had originally given myself a little task of writing at least a paper on how Gandhiji had worked with yoga and evolved his own practice of activism, but that didn't come through. So I was actually sitting with a little bit of guilt on, hey, like I had time to work on it, but I didn't do it. So what else can I do to commemorate this important occasion? Yeah. So it felt right to try and create a dialogic forum to quote unquote re-engage with Gandhi, where we can come together and self-reflectively engage with Gandhiji, and not through the usual modalities of adulation or repulsion prevalent all around. Because what I was noticing was there's been largely two polarized camps. A small group that really has a certain reverence for Gandhiji, and a growing, but an unfortunate but growing number that sort of thinks it's cool or thinks it's very acceptable to be very dismissive of everything that he stood for, or even the person himself. So I felt the need for this because most of our conventional spaces had also, especially around social and political issues, had also either became debates or sometimes discussions, more debates and discussions where we argue and harangue even that we are right and others are wrong. This has become the nature of public conversation, at least on TV and social media. And I felt it was very important we discover or rediscover the art and science of dialogue again, if we are to find healing and harmony amidst us. Yeah, we've really felt like we've forgotten the art of dialogue. So my learning in this direction, is quite preliminary and ongoing, because and I've been dabbling with it with many friends here only for a little while now. But one key discovery thus far has been that dialogue is essentially self-reflective and involves the whole being and not just the realm of thought. Yeah. As a mentor of mine puts it, it has to be Sakala Sahrudaya Samvadam. Yeah, it involves all of one's senses, the whole being, and of course the heart for it to be really dialogue. If it's just the thought, just the mind, then perhaps it's not really Samvadam. Yeah. Authentic Samvadam is both Sakala and Sahrudaya. It's very easy to analyze or offer opinions on the other, quote unquote, the other. But to go within and see what's happening and share it with simple honesty is much harder, and The important aspect of self-reflectivity that I value is that it approaches, in self-reflectivity, what's important is we look inside and we also look at the here and now and what's happening right now here, rather than talk in terms of should be's and ideals. And it also, self-reflectivity also invites us to ask this question: in doing what I'm doing, what am I really doing? Yeah, it invites us to step back and be aware of how am I really listening to each other, or how am I really listening to the other and to myself. So I think authentic dialogue has to be grounded in self-reflectivity. That's at least been a learning that's emerging at this point. So going back to re-engaging with Gandhi, it got a lot more response than we had imagined. And we ended up having to run 3 batches instead of just the one that was planned. It was surprising how many people were eager to wake up early on a weekend morning to be in a space of shared contemplation and dialogue with others. We met once every 2 weeks over a period of 3 months. And for each call, we would send the participants. And when I say we, it includes my friend Priya here and many other friends, Uma and other Rukmini and many others, Girija and many others who've been a part of such spaces since then. Yeah. So the participants, we'd send the participants a set of essays and around Gandhiji's worldview, and also a film about him. Thankfully, in world cinema and in Bollywood, we put together, there's some very interesting, good films that have been made on Gandhiji. So we would send them a few essays and a film every 2 weeks. People would read those essays, watch those films, and then they'll come to the call. But in the call, we focus less on the content of these films and essays and emphasize more on these 2 reflective questions, and they are: what feelings and memories came up for me as I engage with the film and the essays? So what happened to me as I engage with this material? And what did I discover about myself that I wasn't aware of before? Yeah, these were the 2 questions. What happened to me in terms of feelings and memories, and what in terms of feelings, especially as I engaged with this, and what did I discover about myself that I wasn't aware? Yeah, and we really spent very little time discussing the content. We found that heartfelt sharing in a container of friendly listening can be transformational in itself and subtly add to a richer unfolding of the self. Some friends who've been regular in these spaces since have shared with us that this practice has helped them discover parts of themselves they weren't in touch with so much, and also find a fuller voice for themselves. Yeah, so there's something that Girija had shared with me earlier, or with us earlier, which I found very meaningful as well, that it's a certain pedagogy in itself when we create these containers of heartfelt listening and sharing. Something about it is transformational. After the first cohort of re-engaging with Gandhi, some participants got back to us saying, what's next? Let's continue with the process. Let's not close down in just 3 months. So we studied. So Gandhiji wrote this very powerful book called Hind Swaraj. It's probably the essence of his life in those 100 pages. So we studied Hind Swaraj for another 3 months in a similar fashion, with a similar self-reflective focus. Similarly, we read chapters, essays, watched films. But when we came into the circle, we didn't talk about the book or the content, but really spoke about our inner worlds, focused on what happened to our inner worlds. And that's what we shared. So as we're coming to a close, the plan was actually now to, after 6 months of the study, come together and meet in person for about 3 days and actually deepen this whole conversation and experience. But just as we're coming to a close, the pandemic hit in 2020. So unfortunately, that had to be shelved. And as the whole world huddled up inside homes, uncertain and anxious about the future, we felt it might be good to watch some thought-provoking documentaries, inspiring and uninspiring documentaries, already available in the public domain. So we then moved on from there and created something called this New Emergence Film Festival, where we watched some really powerful films. And that was, again, a huge learning, and we made a lot of wonderful friends through that process as well. Very similar kind of process, I guess. We watch the film, but come to the circle and share what happened to us and listen. With all this experimentation, we were also getting better and understanding, getting a better understanding of these spaces, or these dialogic spaces, and the value they offer in enabling important inquiries. Yeah, similar to what Jaish talked about. Then, we offered a circle around engaging with Tagore's nationalism. He wrote a small set of, small booklet on nationalism, where sort of lectures delivered by him. And then, we moved on to some of the other works as well. And we picked up this topic because it's an important polarizing topic in the country today. Who's a nationalist? Who's what is nationalism? They're all sort of burning questions in our midst right now. And in all this, there was a lot of interesting people were coming into this. It'd be nice to just create an informal space for them to get to know each other. So we created another forum called Purnam Cafe, where we weren't reading texts, or it wasn't a serious commitment. We just feature an essay a month, or a speaker a month, and a film a month. So, it was supposed to be a light commitment. If somebody just could read an essay, show up for a call, and then share, and that became again a very very interesting attempt at a very interesting process of people coming together and really sharing deeply. And a couple of other programs that we again moved on to from there were Kabir the bridge builder. We worked with Shabnam and others in sort of looking at how do we build bridges, and again, building bridges seems to be an important need of the times. And what can we learn from people like Kabir or Tagore or Gandhi in that process? And we just finished a film festival on Ahimsa. We watched a bunch of films that raise questions on nonviolence. And so some of these have been some of the different spaces we've created. And many of them have been over multiple seasons, like the Gandhi and the Tagore and Purnam Cafe have all been over multiple iterations now. Amidst all this parallelly, I've also worked with a bunch of very young kids from 7 years to 16 years in a similar processes with films, because in the lockdown, many kids were at home and parents were calling up and asking, hey, our kids are stuck at home, can you do something? So what has been the learning through all this? And all these spaces are also offered in a gift economy sort of way. We didn't put a price tag on any of this to make it accessible for everybody to be a part of it. So what has the learnings been? Though experiment is only about 2 years old, these are some of the initial thoughts that we are left with at the end of it. Is that authentic dialogue is healing and helps build community. Yeah, it helps people make new friends and discover fellow travelers, who share. These spaces have helped people discover fellow travelers who share their vision and values. And circles of meaningful connection and contemplation are needed in today's world. And there's a deep thirst for it because people keep coming back and our numbers keep growing. So it feels like there's a deep thirst for these spaces. Yeah. And going forward, what we'd like to do is our understanding of the art of dialogue still very nascent. And we'd like to delve into it further and embody it deeper. Yeah. And diversity in a circle is a big gift, and it makes the experience and processes richer, dialogue richer. Right now, we've discovered that our diversity is not really as much as we'd like it to be. And so we'd like to make it far more diverse kind of circles. And once the pandemic eases, and travel becomes easier and safer, we hope to host in-person events and facilitate real-life meetings so that we can actually deepen the friendships and the community that we have it's sort of emerging at this point. So a big thanks to everybody for the opportunity to share this story, and all of you, and to the fellow travelers here, close friends are here. And all of you are invited to come and journey with us and create this emerging experiment further. Yeah, thank you so much. I don't know if there are any.
Thank you, Naveen. You've muted yourself in case you're talking.
Oh, sorry, I was just seeing if there are any questions.
Yeah. This might also be a good time, Naveen, in case you want to share the brochure for the upcoming Purnam programs.
Oops. Okay. I mean, I will just leave my email ID. We're just doing a film festival starting from this Sunday on films around decolonization, especially by African filmmakers. Stories that have emerged out of Africa, powerful voices that call for, that raise questions on what's happening today. So if any of you are interested, I would leave the email ID. You can write to me, and then I'll send you more details. I don't want it to be a plug here, but anything you wanted to know about what we do, you can write to us at purnamcafe@gmail.com, and then I will share more details. Be a plug, okay. So you could write to us and I'll send more details. So thank you everybody for your
Naveen.
yeah.
Well, thank you, all the speakers and the musician in our midst. Thank you so much for co-creating this space. I'm sure all of us take away a lot of learning as well as a lot of, well, I personally take back a lot of rhythm in my body after that music. So thank you for that. And so, yeah, we slip into a lunch break now. However, the meeting will be on and you're free to network back in the main room. We will resume at 2 p.m. India time. I know some of us have logged in from the US, so that's an hour from now. So the next set of breakout rooms, so we'll have another set of 3 tracks running simultaneously at 2 p.m. So please join in about 10 minutes earlier so you can pick and choose where you wish to be. And then, of course, there's this lovely closing plenary where we have Faisal Khan from Khudai Khidmatkar doing the closing keynote address, and there's a lovely Kabir concert scheduled after that as well. So I'll post the link to the rest of the schedule here on chat, as well as links to social media handles for Seeds of Peace, where you can find more information. But for now, this breakout room is scheduled to close in another 2 minutes, so we can hang around till then, and then we'll anyway be transported back to the main room automatically. So if there's any questions anyone has of speakers, we have a couple of minutes here.
So Rukmini ma'am, if you permit me, I have already posted a question here just for the general interest of everybody, that if I was born 7,000 years earlier at a place 3,000 miles away from my birthplace, then what would have been my faith and what would I have thought about my current faith? So there's food for thought. No, I don't want any answers, but just a food for thought.
Thank you, Dr.
So wonderful afternoon, wonderful forenoon, and outstanding program. Very, very powerful presentations and speeches, and particularly from the younger lot. So congratulations and 3 cheers to all of you.
Thank you
for
so much.
that lovely presentations. Thank you.
I'm just informed on chat that Dr. Mahmood, I think the question you posted has gone only to one person as a private message. Uma, could you please copy paste it so that it goes to everyone?
Oh, I see. That's my mistake. Done that.
Thank you.
Has it come to everybody now?
Yes, it has.
Yes, yes. Now we have seen it. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we'll be back in the main room in 30 seconds, but thanks for joining this session, and I hope to see you again for the next track, as well as don't miss the closing plenary. That promises to be very inspiring.
Thank you, Ms. Rukmini. It was really very interesting.
Thank you, and please feel free to forward the Zoom link to anyone else who may be interested as well.
I'll do that. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mahmood. And when are you coming back?
I'm back here already.
Okay.